Hi, this is Dave Bazar, and this is the latest. I'm back again with Dominic and Michael. We're doing an episode 2. This is a follow-up to our previous episode where we tried to show you everything we do to keep our irrigation system running efficiently during the year, at least during the summer. Now we're going to try to turn toward how do we put that to bed. Dominic, you want to give us a little bit of thought process on that?
Yeah. So it's all about keeping things clean and ready to go. So we want to make sure everything's sanitary, clean, so it's all running smooth during the summer like you were saying. We're always check like that. But then come winter time, you don't put water on, so you want to give it one last go so everything's clean and ready to go, so when your water is turned on next March or February, depending on rain, it's ready and clean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of time to where nothing's running at all.
Right.
So we want to make sure everything's good, so when we start it back up, we don't have any major issues.
Yeah.
I mean, we fix the little things, but we don't want lines blown up. We don't want filters blown up. We don't want that. We just want to make sure everything's good, ready to go, so we can start making money.
All right, so now we're going to put the irrigation system to bed. Michael, why don't you take us through it?
So what we want to do is just clean everything. We want to make sure that there's no algae growing in these over the winter. We want to make sure that the sand is good. We want to make sure that the gravel is good, the under drains, everything is all cleaned out, so that when we start it up, we don't get massive problems. That starts with the reservoir and then all the way down to the field. So one way we do it is our chlorine. We up our chlorine ppm so that it can kill all the algae quicker, so that when we do run the systems, it's all gone. So we turn on our flush valves and we flush all the dead algae out. So we start basically with newer sand. It doesn't have anything in it, everything's dead. And then when we get to our acid, we up our acid to around 4, 3.5, 3.7, and then we inject that in. We don't want it to go below a 3. We don't want it to keep dropping so much because it can wreck the diaphragms in the field, in the valves in the field. So we don't want to wreck the big valves in the field. That's a no-no. But yeah, our main goal is to just clean everything.
So after we did our shock, we got everything cleaned up. We want to check the sand and make sure that it's clean and up to standard. But due to the water still not being drained out yet, we still have a little bit dripping out, so you can't really see it. But if we dig our hands in there, you can see we got okay looking sand. We might have to want to do another one and flush it out a little bit more. But the level of the sand is good, so we're definitely not going to need to add any more this year. But we definitely want to make sure it's a little cleaner.
So right now we're in a 2-year-old block. We're sat next to this sad little tree right here. But this is where we want to check our numbers for our shock. So our shock is the chlorine and the acid at higher ppm. Our chlorine, we want over 15 ppm. And our acid, we want around the 3.5, 3.7 range for the shock. So this is the last thing we do. The lines get cleaned out. We do let it sit for a day so that the acid and the chlorine can eat away the calcium in the scale right by the emitter, so that when this is ready to go, the emitters are performing perfectly. So this is a double line drip with a micro sprinkler on the riser. So we just have to change the valve to where it shuts off the micro sprinkler and then can turn on the double line drip. So when we're ready to shock, we just switch it so we can shock both of them in one time.
Since we're flushing out all this water, getting them cleaned out, we want to make sure that we don't make a mess in the field if we have any last tractor work and cultural practices that we want to take care of, like V-blading or any last minute sprays or anything that needs to go through in the field. We want to make sure that it's dry. So we do this after all tractors are done, all irrigation's done. This should be the last thing you do for the year.
Okay, I hope we have educated you a little bit about how we put that system to bed, and hopefully you watched episode number 1 where we showed you the time and effort we take to make sure it's working really well all through the season. So I want to thank Dominic and Michael for joining us out here. This has been the latest.